Am I audible to everyone? Yeah, thank you so much. So today my topic is about Noobernetes. It's not really a name of a project, but I just want to a quick heads up of how many people here knows or contribute to Kubernetes. Just a quick hands up. I know you all are very tired, but just to, okay. So we have a couple of them, and that's really cool. So I don't have a lot of people here who actually contributes to it, so now my talk will be way more simpler. So moving forward, I'll be talking about this project, Kubernetes, and how it helped me to become the person that I am today, and what all it did for me, and how open source gave me all the opportunities I have today. So we'll be sneaking into a project which is one of the largest open source project that you can ever find. So since this is a FOSS event, and that could be the best topic for us to have about open source project. Yeah, so first things first, who am I? So I'm Faeka Ansari, and you might have seen me on Twitter or on LinkedIn and at several conferences and talks that I give. So what have I done so far? I am one of the member of Kubernetes. I am also one of the speaker for KubeCon North America, and I've also spoken at several Cube Days like Cube Day India. Apart from that, I'm also very active in upstream community work, like I'm a GitHub campus expert, I'm a Google Developer Student Cups leader, and I'm also a Gold Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador. Apart from that, yeah, a lot of things. And yeah, outside of that, I'm a third-year student pursuing computer science from Pune. So that's about me. My name is Faeka, and you can find me on these handles. So that's my GitHub handle, Twitter, and LinkedIn handle. We'll come back to this page. A short intro to what we are going to do today. So the index for the talk today is basically Kubernetes. We'll be going through a structure of a project which is like really vast, a project that a lot of people contribute to, and which is one of the largest open source project. And we'll be seeing how is Kubernetes and a wide scope project is structured overall. We'll be seeing all of the SIGs that it has, and if you don't know what a SIG means, that's totally fine. We'll be going through it. We'll be seeing why should you start your journey into open source right from today. And we'll be also exploring some mentorship opportunities. So I did not say this, but I have also been a Linux Foundation mentee under a project which is a graduated project in CNCF, that is Istio, which works on service mesh. And we'll also see how do we climb that contributor ladder in order to become one of the best contributors in these projects. And then a slide about me and how and what all has Kubernetes given me. That's all is the agenda for today. So starting with like absolute basic, what is Kubernetes? And since I saw like very few hands, so I would just give a very brief intro to what is Kubernetes, because I really don't want to make it very technical. That is something that you will do after going home from this talk, and you'll start exploring about Kubernetes and start contributing maybe. So Kubernetes, like in a very technical term, is called as an orchestrator for cloud native applications. But what is an orchestrator? Two heavy words. Kubernetes is like a conductor for your application. It makes your application smooth. It makes your application run very, it helps you manage your application. So that's all what Kubernetes does. It's like a conductor. So a very basic explanation. If you see government applications, if you all have been through it, they are so slow, right? Why? Some of them are very slow, some of them are really cool and very fast. But the reason for them to slow is because they don't have a really cool backend and really good manager behind the scene who can manage all their application, all the traffic coming to their application, correct? So that is why these applications that these government softwares are using is not using Kubernetes, because Kubernetes is expensive at the end of the day. It needs so many people to manage it and stuff, just like we do contribute to these projects. This is something Kubernetes does. It helps you manage your project. It helps your project to speed up and everything else apart from it. So this is Kubernetes under the hood, like not under the hood, but in the technical perspective. What we are going to discuss today is about the open source project that is Kubernetes, what it does in open source. So apart from all the great stuff that Kubernetes does for software developers and engineers, Kubernetes holds the largest, one of the largest open source projects in this world. So you all would have heard about Linux. Who doesn't know about Linux? I think barely a hand will be raised up of a person who does not know Linux, right? So just like Linux is one of the largest open source organization, Kubernetes stands just one or two rank below it. So that is what is Kubernetes. a really huge open source project which is managed by lots of engineers from across the world and all of people, a very collaborative project which we'll be going through. Okay, so now, since Kubernetes is so huge, like I said, it is like the largest open source project, and if you want to just get in, like I got into Kubernetes and started contributing as a student as well. Just for a quick heads up, how many of us here is a student? Oh wow, that's so cool. So I have so many students here, and I really wish this talk motivates you all to go home and start contributing, because I will tell you all how all of these things helped me to gain all the opportunities that I have today. And yeah, so talking about Kubernetes structure. So Kubernetes, being such a large organization, is obviously structured, because whenever things are structured, it becomes easy, right? So we have this structure in Kubernetes where the entire project is divided into 6 working groups, that is WGs, user groups, and committees. Now, what do we mean by this? Okay, so what do we mean by this is, 6 are nothing else but just think of it. This is like a huge project. There will be a lot of things to contribute in, from networking, from scheduling, because if you know about Kubernetes, this is a orchestration tool. This is a conductor. So it has several features in it. For every single feature, there is a lot of implementation of code going behind the scenes. And all these features are handled by these 6 that are special interest groups. So there is 6 scheduling, a lot of 6 basically. So 6 basically own the code of every single feature in Kubernetes. Then comes working groups. What is working groups? So let's say there is like a feature that is just trying to come up and want to gain attraction. Okay, people should come and discuss about this feature in sense of code or anything. Like for example, right now we have LTS, which is very much booming in Kubernetes. So that is a working group, because now it is just a cross-SIG platform where people can discuss about something, code about something, but it is not yet so graduated that it becomes a SIG. But yeah, if it really works well, then it will be converted to a SIG. Similarly, there is a user group. Now, what is the user group? Is basically all of us users, to discuss about some particular topic in Kubernetes. We form a user group. And then we have committees. Now, what are committees? So this is like a really cool concept. When I say becoming a contributor and climbing the contributor ladder, that is where committees comes up. So like I am a member. After a certain time, I will become a reviewer. And then after a certain time, I'll become an approver. I'll then become a sub-project maintainer. So all of these things are handled by a committee. So in Kubernetes, we have a steering committee and several other similar committees. So that is what the Kubernetes structure looks like. But, so let's say this is your day 1, and you want to contribute to Kubernetes, which is an open source project, and you're not sure at all which SIG should I find. I hope you all know what SIG means after the whole thing that I said just a while ago. So you all are like really confused about which SIG should I contribute to. And like I said, there are a lot of SIGs. Like Kubernetes is a huge application or like a software. So we have scheduling, we have networking, testing, CLI, etcd, and all these things. These are all the types of SIGs that Kubernetes has. So like if I talk about myself, I contribute to release, I contribute to SIG testing, etcd. I also contribute to SIG contribex. But I obviously did not know even A about all of these things. Like if we count it from A to Z, I did not have any clue when I started as a student, because obviously I never knew what Kubernetes was, right? So it's very intimidating at first, and that's totally all right to be intimidated when you're starting with any open source project. If you find your way to contribute into Kubernetes, moving forward, you will find it very easy to even work in a company or an MNC, because you have been through that overwhelming, path. Okay, so I have like really less time on my hand. So let's just talk about how do we pick our SIG. So as a student, like we have a lot of students, we also have a lot of professionals here. I would really recommend all the professionals to also start contributing to these sort of projects, be it in their niche if they want to find. But if you want to pick a SIG in Kubernetes, it's very simple. You need to choose either you want to start code or no code. It's totally fine if you want to start no code, because that's what I did. I started contributing in the no code side of the project, and then I moved to the code side. So you need to choose between code or no code. You need to see which is the topic that interests you the most. Like when I say networking, when I say scheduling, students might not understand it, but professionals might do. So they can just pick up that SIG, right? But if we are students, then you can also see what topic interests you, or you should start with no code. You should see what thing is related to your job, and that's how you begin with contributing into Kubernetes. and obviously the language that you are familiar with. So I'm not sure how many folks here actually code in Go language, but that is something that really helps if you want to contribute into cloud native projects that I do specifically. Yeah, so let's like that was a quick overview of how you can start with choosing your SIG to contribute to. But just choosing a SIG and starting contribution is not easy job, right? So how do you actually get in contact with all these people who are contributing? So you talk with the SIG members. Now, who are the SIG members? There is an entire committee, like I said. There are approvers, members, and there are chairs, there are leaders of those projects. I'll come towards that hierarchy in a later part. But how do you talk to them? Is through Slack channels. So all of these projects, be it Kubernetes or any other open source project that you will ever come across, will have a communication medium, right? Be it Discord or be it Slack. So in Kubernetes, we have Slack channels, and for every particular SIG, we hold weekly Slack meetings, okay? So you need to just join those weekly calls. You need to introduce yourself and just move forward. That's all about starting a conversation. Okay, so a quick tip for the students who want to contribute. You can check out these two SIGs if you would really want to contribute to Kubernetes. I would really say I would come across the opportunity that I got from contributing in a later part of this session, but I would really want you all to note down these names because I really wish you all start contributing after this talk. So yeah, SIG docs and SIG contribix, this is like a no-code project for you to begin with. Like I began with SIG contribix. I started contributing under a lot of folks like Caitlin Fields and Chris Short. I was just attending their weekly meetings. I started contributing to their projects. I started writing blogs and all those things. And that was just something that got me very, familiar with the environment that this open source community had. And then I was so confident that I can hit anybody's door and ask them, okay, tell me how do I contribute to CLI? Tell me how do I contribute to this code? That is what it helps you with. So if you're a student, it's really recommended that you start with at least docs or contribix. Okay, so some repos. Repos is repositories. I really hope you all obviously know what that is. So some really good repositories for us to start with as a student. This is like a community repository, not even as a student. Everyone can just look forward to it. So this is a repository Kubernetes/community where you can find everything about Kubernetes. So if you are in your day one and you want to begin contributing, just hit on this repository and go through all the communities that are listed there. You'll be able to find all the information. Yeah. Another repository which is worth looking at is the annual repository. Not annual repository, it is basically an annual report that Kubernetes creates every year after the end of the SIG, and that is where all the initiatives that is worth investing a time on, which needs contributors, is listed. So you can find these annual reports. You just Google it, annual report Kubernetes, and you'll find these things. And you should find where exactly you need to contribute to, because these are the areas much seeking contributors. Tip for everyone, this is your day one, being intimidated is absolutely fine. And you need to just start small. You need to keep watching everyone and just check what is everyone else doing. And slowly you will definitely figure out how many opportunities you have in open source. So this was all about contributing to open source. But why are we even talking about open source? Why do we have to contribute to open source is the next part, right? So talking about open source, why do we need and how do we contribute to? First thing. So you need to observe the issue labels. So up till now, whatever I said was, joining the Slack meetings and contributing with people, talking with them and everything. How do you contribute to open source project in specific in general? You go to their SIG, you go to their issues, and you find issues which is labeled with good first issue. That is really good for you to start with. And obviously that won't be easy either, but you can definitely, look out for issues which are labeled as help wanted, because help wanted label basically means that they are also providing mentorship. So you will also get a mentor from the same project. So these are some really cool things that you all can look up to. Now, yeah, obviously the motivation and why do you have to actually contribute to open source. So pretty technical stuff. Open source is like really high in demand. A lot of HRs are really looking for open source engineers, and it is very tough to find people who actually contribute to open source. And the toughest part of contributing to open source is that you have to work for free for people who are not even paying you back in terms of anything. But you still need that motivation to work for open source, and where is that coming from? So that is something I would give you maybe from my own profile or something. The reason why you should contribute to open source for free is it builds your resume. So you would say that what is open source doing for me? It's not paying my job, it's not doing anything, right? So I would say it speaks on your resume. If you just add your contribution to your resume, that really reflects. Secondly, you gain a really good professional network. You upskill yourself when you are solving all those problems that actually happen in a company or on a software. You gain visibility. You also get a lot of referrals like I do generally, and a lot of growth obviously. Since obviously your goal is to contribute to the open source Kubernetes project or even other projects. Now talking about certain mentorship opportunities. So contributing to open source does not just comes up with referrals and all those things that I listed earlier, but also you get admission, an easy admission to these projects like Google Summer of Code. I believe a lot of us is aware of it. Outreachy programs and Linux Foundation mentorship program. And there is also release teams which really shines off on your resume. It's something that you get admission to through open source. So that is one thing. I really hope you all start today. And how do you start? Just join one of these Slack channels and introduce yourself and ask questions, that's all. And observe yourself, just like I said earlier. Yeah, so this is pretty simple stuff. How do you introduce and ask questions? Just check who you are and talking to what are the parts of the project that it interests you and everything else apart from it. And this is just a simple thing. When you are trying to contribute on GitHub, open source organization, Kubernetes has this thing that you need to sign up a CLA. So CLA is basically a way for Kubernetes to authenticate you and only then merge your code. So that is a simple thing. You will obviously get knack of it once you start contributing, like a repository that I mentioned earlier, Kubernetes/community. Basically, github.com/Kubernetes/community is a good repository for you to start with, reading the readmes, and then you'll figure out how do we contribute. Yeah, and then that is how we actually climb the contributor ladder. So I started with a non-member contributor. I started contributing, I did it for like months and months, 3 to 4 months, and then I became a member of Kubernetes organization. Once I became a member, I further climb the ladder. I keep contributing, I keep reviewing people's code for free, and then I become a reviewer. They basically add me to a list of reviewers, and then you become an approver. And once you are a really good approver, you do it for like years and years, then you become the owner of that particular SIG. You get called as a lead or chair. I'm not yet, but yeah, hopefully in the coming future. So that's how you pick your SIG. This is like a really good chart which shows, this is basically picked up from this link which I have listed down. It's on the Kubernetes/community. This is the hierarchy of what committees look like. So we have like a really good steering committee, we have code of conduct, security, and everything else which you can actually go through on the Kubernetes/community repo. Yeah, talking about the opportunities that I got as a contributor. So I have been a Linux Foundation mentee, which is a really good program which pays you in dollars. And not just that, after the internship, you get a lot of other opportunities from these organizations itself. Like I was admitted to Linux Foundation mentorship program, and when I was there, the simple stipend for a really basic project which you have to work on part-time is like $2,500 So that is a really good project because a really good program because you get to work with people not just from India, but from across the world and gain that experience outside of it. And then there is a release shadow program. So I have been a member of Kubernetes release team for its version 1.29 and 1.30. So you get a mentorship in these programs as well. Yeah, and apart from that, obviously, I got a lot of conference visibility. So I got to, speak at KubeCon North America. I also got to speak at Cube Day India, which is one of the largest, conference happening around cloud native and Kubernetes in India. Then I also got an opportunity to attend Google's contributor appreciation dinner in North America, which was specific to only contributors, and I was the only student, amongst one other, invited to this contributor dinner by Google. So I also got another opportunity, which is yet to come in next month probably. So it is about Kubernetes Contributor Summit Paris, and I have an opportunity to speak there. So all of these things are something I usually got only because of open source, and more to come obviously. But next what? So I would say upskill yourself, and this is something which you would do next. Take certifications, like right now I am about to give CKA certification, which is a certified Kubernetes administrator, which then next is CKA development and security and all these things. So take certifications in Kubernetes. You can lead communities in Kubernetes. So what do I mean by Kubernetes communities is KCDs. You might have heard some of them in Pune as well. We have KCD Pune. Then you can become a part of Cube Days and CF community meetups. And yeah, apply for roles, obviously, because that is the end goal. You can also explore other projects in Cloud Native. You don't have to stick with only Kubernetes, which is one of the largest organizations, but there is a lot of other projects revolving around it. Like I am interning at one of the projects, which is the founder of Kyverno. And then I have also worked with Istio. These are all several other projects, which is outside the scope of Kubernetes, but very linked to it. You can explore all the other projects in open source and cloud native in the CNCF landscape. If you want to check this, this page, which is full of a lot of projects, you can go on this link. That is landscape.cncf.io. And yeah, that's all. So you all can find me here, and if you all have any questions, I'm just waiting outside. Thank you so much. Do we have time to take questions? Does anyone have a question? Yeah.
Excellent talk. How did you get introduced to Kubernetes or even open source?
Okay, so I was a GitHub Campus expert. I became a GitHub Campus expert in my second year itself, and which really empowers us to contribute to open source and everything else. So that is how there was a lot of noise about open source everywhere. So I was like, okay, what is this open source? And just got into one of these organizations, which was Kubernetes, and called out. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else?